Before we begin, take a moment to settle in. Lower the light around you. Let your shoulders soften. There's nothing you need to do right now, and nowhere you need to go. If you find comfort in these quiet stories, you're welcome to subscribe. It helps this place stay open, night after night. And if you'd like, leave a small note below, just where you're listening from tonight. Now, let the building take over. The school is quiet in a way that only happens after midnight. Not the kind of quiet that feels empty, but the kind that feels complete. By 2 a.m., the building has already settled into itself. The last echoes of the day have thinned out and disappeared. No lockers closing. No distant voices drifting down the halls. No hurried footsteps trying to make up lost time. What remains is the structure. Floors holding their place. Walls remembering where they've always been. Corners turning at the same angles they always have. The lights are still on, not all of them, but enough. A careful pattern, chosen long before tonight. They don't brighten as the hours pass. They don't dim to signal anything new. They simply remain, doing what they were meant to do. The hallway stretches in both directions. Long, straight, uninterrupted. The tiles beneath your feet are smooth from years of use. Each one carries a faint reflection from the lights above. At this hour, those reflections seem softer. Less interested in being noticed. Less concerned with sharp edges or clear boundaries. The hallway feels longer the more you stand within it. Not because it stretches, but because there is nothing urging it to end. The lights repeat themselves at measured intervals, each one casting the same soft circle onto the floor, each reflection fading gently into the next. You begin to notice small variations that never mattered before. The slight difference in color between tiles, the way some edges are more worn than others, the faint marks left behind by chairs, shoes, and years of passing time. None of it forms a story. None of it asks to be remembered. It simply exists, layered quietly on top of itself, holding the shape of every night that has passed through this space before. Somewhere far inside the building, ventilation hums quietly. Not loud enough to interrupt the silence, just present enough to remind the school that it is still standing, still circulating air through rooms that no longer need it. The sound does not move. It does not travel. It simply exists, evenly, without urgency. Doors line the hallway at regular intervals. Classrooms, offices, storage rooms that have already done their work for the day. Their windows are dark. Their handles untouched. Nothing inside them asks for attention or explanation. You could stop and look through the glass of any door. You could try to remember what happens in those rooms during the day. But at 2 a.m., those details feel unnecessary. The rooms are complete without their stories. The clock at the end of the corridor continues to move. Its sound is too faint to track precisely. It marks time without insisting on it. 2 a.m. passes. And the building does not respond. The floor beneath you feels steady. Solid. Unconcerned with who stands on it. Or why. This part of the school is rarely occupied at night. Not forbidden. Just overlooked. It exists in the space between shifts. Between reasons. Between the end of one day and the beginning of another. The hallway does not narrow or widen. It doesn't try to guide you anywhere. It simply continues. One section leading into the next with quiet certainty. There is no sense of urgency here. No signal that anything needs to happen. Nothing waiting at the end of the hall that requires you to arrive. The lights hum softly overhead. The sound blends into the air until it no longer feels separate. It becomes part of the space itself. The building does not ask questions. It does not offer answers. It holds its shape. And waits. At 2 a.m., the school feels less like a place meant for learning, and more like a place meant for remembering. Every step that has passed through these halls has already moved on. Every voice has already faded into the walls. Every urgency has been cleared away. What remains is the floor itself, holding everything evenly. Without judgment. Without preference. Nothing in this space needs to be solved. Nothing needs to be understood. There are no instructions to follow. The hallway extends forward, unchanged. The lights remain steady. The silence holds. And slowly, almost without realizing it, your breathing begins to match the calm rhythm of the building around you. The routine settles in without announcing itself. Not because it is imposed, but because nothing arrives to interrupt it. The hallway looks the same each time you move through it. The lights repeat their pattern overhead, evenly spaced and unchanging, casting identical pools of light onto the floor below. The reflections remain soft and stable, never sharpening, never fading completely, as if the building has already decided exactly how much attention the night requires. There is no clear moment when repetition begins. It does not start suddenly, or mark itself as something new. It simply becomes noticeable after it has already taken hold. Once the mind stops expecting variation and begins to accept consistency as the default state. At 2 a.m., the school does not feel abandoned. It feels paused. The air remains still, carrying a faint trace of the day that came before it. A mixture of dust, cleaning solution, and old paper lingers quietly, suspended in place. It is the kind of neutral scent that belongs to buildings designed to hold people temporarily. Spaces meant to be occupied for a time, and then released again without ceremony. Each step sounds softer here. Not because the floor absorbs it, but because the space no longer reacts. The sound arrives, exists briefly, and then disappears without echo or resistance. As if the hallway accepts it, and then immediately lets it go. The walls do not return the sound sharply. They do not amplify it. They simply allow it to pass, unremarked, back into the quiet that surrounds everything at this hour. Doors remain closed. Not out of caution, but out of habit. Their surfaces are unchanged, their handles resting in the same positions they held throughout the day. They do not suggest what waits behind them. They do not invite curiosity or offer explanation. Classrooms sit quietly behind those doors. Rows of desks remain exactly where they were left, aligned in patterns that no longer serve a purpose. Chairs rest against them at slight angles, frozen between use and rest. Boards hold faint traces of erased writing, incomplete and unnecessary now, lingering only because no one has asked them to disappear completely. Inside the classrooms, objects hold their positions with quiet certainty. Desks remain aligned in rows that no longer anticipate use, their surfaces marked by faint scratches, ink impressions, and the dull sheen left by countless resting hands. Chairs sit slightly askew, some pushed in neatly, others left at angles that suggest a pause rather than an ending. Cabinets along the walls keep their contents hidden. Doors closed not to protect anything, but simply because no one has opened them again. Papers rest in trays, stacked without urgency. Books wait on shelves, spines facing outward, titles unread and unconcerned. The rooms do not feel unfinished. They feel complete in their stillness, as if nothing more is required of them until morning decides otherwise. Nothing inside these rooms is preparing for anything. The lights above continue their quiet work. They do not flicker or shift tone. They repeat the same soft hum, cycle after cycle, hour after hour, without adjustment or emphasis. The sound blends into the background, until it no longer feels separate from the air itself. Time begins to feel less specific here. Minutes no longer separate themselves clearly. They soften at the edges, and begin to overlap, losing their sharp boundaries. One stretch of hallway blends into the next without a clear transition, and the idea of progression becomes less important than the simple act of continuation. You might pass a familiar corner, and feel as though you have already been there, even if you know you have not. Or perhaps you have, and the distinction no longer matters. The building does not insist on accuracy. The floor continues beneath you, unchanged by repetition. Tiles reflect the same light again and again, without showing wear or preference. They have already accepted their purpose: to hold weight, and then release it, evenly and without comment. Somewhere deeper in the building, a door closes on its own. Not loudly, not sharply. Just a quiet movement settling back into stillness. The sound does not travel far. It does not announce itself. It becomes part of the background, absorbed immediately into the larger quiet that defines the night. The school does not react to the darkness outside. It does not lean into it, and it does not resist it. It simply continues to exist within it, holding its shape without adjustment. Hallways remain straight. Corners turn at predictable angles. Stairwells wait between floors, unused and patient, offering access without expectation. Everything holds its position. The routine carries on without needing to be followed. You do not need to remember which hallway you passed through last. The building remembers for you. Lights remain on. Doors remain closed. The floor remains steady. The repetition does not demand attention. It does not change pace to be noticed. Instead, it becomes reliable. And in that reliability, there is a quiet comfort. Nothing unexpected is required of you. No decision needs to be made. No direction needs to be chosen. The hallway continues forward, offering itself again and again in the same familiar way. Time drifts. Not forward. Not backward. It simply loosens. The longer the routine continues, the less effort it requires. Movements become smaller, slower, almost optional. The hallway does not demand that you keep pace with it. It allows you to pass through at whatever speed feels natural, even if that speed begins to approach stillness. Time no longer presses forward. It settles into a gentle suspension, where moments do not need to follow one another in order to exist. The repetition becomes soft, not dull, as if the building has learned how to repeat itself without drawing attention. Each familiar detail confirms the last, reinforcing a sense of continuity that no longer needs explanation. The night does not deepen dramatically. It simply remains, holding the school in a quiet state where change is unnecessary, and expectation has gradually released its hold. Moments connect without effort, settling into one another until the idea of separation feels unnecessary. The routine deepens, not heavier, just more complete, holding the school together through every quiet repetition of the night. Sometime after the routine has settled, the night begins to thin. Not suddenly. Not in a way that asks to be noticed. The hallway remains unchanged at first. The lights continue their steady pattern overhead. The doors stay closed. And the floor holds its familiar reflections. Yet the space between moments begins to stretch. Not outward, but inward. As if time itself has decided to slow its grip. Standing here feels different now. Not lighter, not heavier, but less defined. The floor beneath you remains solid, dependable, unmoved by the hour, yet the sensation of standing still grows softer, less anchored to a specific point. Reflections on the tiles take longer to form. Not enough to call it a delay, but enough to notice before they fade again. The air seems more settled, less interested in circulating, content to remain exactly where it is, holding the same quiet temperature without adjustment. The hum that once stood apart begins to dissolve into the background. It is no longer a sound you follow, but a steady presence that blends seamlessly into the structure of the building. You no longer separate it from the silence. It becomes part of it. Movement feels optional now. You may walk, or you may remain still, and the difference feels insignificant. Corners appear familiar before you reach them, as if the building has already introduced them to you. The distinction between one section of the floor and the next begins to soften, losing its usefulness. Lights repeat themselves with precise consistency. The same spacing. The same tone. They no longer feel sequential. They feel expected, appearing without requiring acknowledgement. Doors pass quietly at your side. Their labels, if they exist, no longer insisting on being read or remembered. Classrooms no longer feel separate from one another. Each room carries the same quiet completeness as the last. Desks remain still. Chairs hold their positions. Boards keep their faint traces without asking to be finished. Nothing inside these spaces asks to be revisited. As you continue through the building, the sense of separation between spaces weakens further. Hallways begin to feel less like connectors, and more like extensions of the same continuous interior. The distance between doors loses its meaning, measured no longer in steps, but in familiarity. You recognize sections of the floor without recalling when you first encountered them, as if the building has quietly repeated itself enough times to remove the need for memory. The lighting reinforces this sameness, each fixture offering the same gentle glow, each reflection dissolving into the next without interruption. The school does not disorient you abruptly. Instead, it slowly releases the importance of orientation altogether, allowing rooms, corridors, and corners to exist without hierarchy or sequence, all equally present within the same quiet interior moment. Time behaves differently here. It no longer moves forward in a straight line, or gathers itself into clear segments. Instead, it spreads gently across the space, thinning until individual moments lose their edges. You may sense that minutes are passing, but they do not announce themselves. They arrive quietly, and dissolve before they can be named. The school does not provide markers to measure this change. There are no bells, no schedules, no transitions to observe. Without these signals, time becomes less demanding. It no longer asks to be followed. The building holds each moment evenly, allowing them to exist without sequence, without pressure, and without expectation. What once felt like progression now feels like a continuous present, stable and unhurried, held in place by the steady architecture around you. Breathing becomes easier to notice now, not because it has changed, but because nothing competes with it for attention. Each breath arrives quietly, settles for a moment, and leaves without urgency. The body adjusts without instruction, matching the steady calm of the space around you. The floor continues to offer its support evenly, never shifting, never responding, simply present beneath each subtle movement. The building holds this rhythm without comment, allowing breath and stillness to exist together without interruption. There is no need to follow the breath or control it. It finds its own pace naturally, guided by the quiet consistency of the school itself. Awareness begins to settle into a simpler form. Thoughts arrive less frequently, and leave without leaving traces behind. The need to label what you are experiencing loosens, replaced by a quiet acceptance of what is already here. The hallway no longer suggests movement or rest. Both feel equally complete. The school does not require participation. It remains steady whether you observe it closely or allow it to fade into the background. In this state, presence feels broad and unconfined, held gently by walls that do not press inward, and floors that do not pull attention downward. Everything remains as it is, and that is enough. Time loosens further. Minutes no longer arrive cleanly. They drift into one another, overlapping gently, their edges softened until counting feels unnecessary. You may notice that you have stopped tracking how long you have been here. The question itself no longer fits the space. The floor continues beneath you, unchanged by the thinning night. It does not adjust or respond. It supports weight evenly, without preference or recognition. Somewhere above, a light hums more quietly than before, or perhaps attention has simply moved away from it. The building does not correct the distinction. The hallway stretches forward again, straight and predictable, yet subtly less defined. Edges soften, not darker or dimmer, but less important. The space no longer pulls attention outward. It allows it to settle where it is. You pass a doorway, and feel as though you have already passed it, or that you will pass it again. The difference does not matter. The floor remains steady. The lights remain on. The routine continues, but it no longer feels like repetition. It feels like continuation. One moment dissolves into the next without resistance. The hallway does not reset itself. It does not mark transitions. It simply carries the night forward in a slow, even motion that no longer requires supervision. Breathing slows naturally. In, out. Unmeasured and unforced. There is no need to match it to anything. The building has already established the pace. The school does not announce that it has entered a deeper hour. There is no signal, no marker. It simply grows less defined, as if the night has relaxed its hold on precision. The spaces between lights feel wider now. Not longer in any measurable way, but less exact. The floor no longer feels like a path. It feels like a surface that continues whether you move or not. The idea of direction softens. Forward and backward lose their meaning. There is only presence. The hallway exists. The lights remain. The quiet holds. You do not need to decide where to go next. The building has already decided that nothing is required. The night continues to thin, and with it, the need to stay aware begins to dissolve. The school holds its shape as attention loosens its grip. The floor remains steady beneath you, unchanged and patient, while the quiet carries on without asking to be followed. The longer this stillness holds, the less effort it takes to remain within it. There is no longer a sense of waiting for something to happen, or expecting the space to change. The school has settled into a complete state, one where nothing is missing and nothing needs to arrive. The walls hold their distance without pressing inward. The ceiling remains where it is, unremarked and stable. The floor continues its quiet work beneath you, steady and dependable, allowing attention to rest without drifting. In this moment, awareness does not expand or contract. It simply stays. The building offers no cues, no instructions, no signals to move forward. It allows the night to exist exactly as it is, calm and uninterrupted, and holds you within that calm without asking anything in return. As the night moves closer to morning, it does not announce the change. There is no clear boundary, where 1 hour releases the next. The school remains steady, holding the same quiet posture it has held throughout the night, unchanged and unreactive. The lights continue their work overhead. They do not brighten in anticipation of anything, and they do not dim in response to time passing. Each fixture offers the same measured glow, spreading evenly across the floor, creating reflections that soften as they extend outward, before dissolving quietly into the surrounding space. The hallway feels lighter now. Not shorter. Not wider. Simply easier to exist within. The space no longer presses for awareness or movement. It allows presence to settle without effort, as if the building has already decided that nothing more is required. The floor beneath you continues to carry its quiet responsibility. It supports weight evenly, without responding, without shifting, offering the same stable surface it always has. It does not acknowledge repetition. It does not record footsteps. It simply remains where it is, reliable and unchanging. The air feels settled, no longer circulating with intention. It rests within the building, as though it has already completed its task for the night. Temperature holds steady. Nothing stirs. Nothing interrupts. Thoughts arrive more slowly now. When they do, they lack urgency. They do not connect to one another, or build toward conclusions. Each thought appears briefly, and then passes through, leaving no impression behind. Nothing holds them in place. As attention softens, details that once felt insignificant begin to blend together. The exact distance between lights becomes harder to judge. The pattern remains, but its precision no longer matters. The hallway no longer presents itself as a series of measurable segments. It feels continuous, as though its length exists all at once, rather than unfolding step by step. The walls do not press inward or recede. They simply remain, holding their position without suggestion. Even the corners lose their sharpness, turning gently without signaling a change in direction. The school does not guide awareness forward. It allows it to rest wherever it naturally settles, unchallenged and uncorrected. Time loosens further. Minutes no longer separate themselves clearly. They soften and begin to overlap, losing the sharp edges that once distinguished them. The idea of sequence becomes less relevant. What matters now is not order, but continuity. The hallway continues forward without offering direction. Corners turn gently where they always have. Stairwells wait in their usual places, unused and patient, neither inviting nor discouraging movement. Nothing pulls attention toward them. The school does not expect motion. It does not expect stillness either. Both feel equally complete within this hour. Light spreads more gently across the floor now. Not dimmer, but less defined. Reflections extend slightly farther before fading, creating wider spaces between brightness and shadow. The change is subtle, noticeable only because attention has eased. The building no longer asks to be interpreted. It does not present details for analysis or invite explanation. It exists without commentary, holding its shape without needing to be understood. Some rooms feel occupied without showing it. Others feel empty without absence. The difference no longer carries meaning. Doors remain closed, not to conceal anything, but simply because they belong to the walls. They have settled into place as part of the structure itself. The routine continues, but it has lost its edges. It no longer feels like a sequence of repeated actions. It feels like a single, continuous motion, smooth and uninterrupted. One hallway blends into the next. One moment dissolves into another. The school carries this motion without resistance, allowing it to flow evenly through its interior. You no longer need to follow where you have been. That work has already been completed. The building holds the pattern for you. The hum of the lights becomes even less distinct. Not quieter, just easier to ignore. It merges with the air, losing its identity as a separate sound. The space allows attention to drift inward. There is no need to stay alert. No reason to prepare. Nothing ahead requires awareness. The building will continue whether it is noticed or not. The idea of arrival begins to lose its shape. There is no destination waiting. There is only continuation. The hallway opens again into another familiar stretch of light. Or perhaps it is the same one, appearing without effort. The distinction has softened beyond importance. The night thins further. Not ending, just easing. Awareness lightens without instruction, releasing its grip gradually. The floor continues to hold you without asking anything in return. The longer this hour continues, the less distinction remains between movement and stillness. Both feel equally valid, equally complete. The building does not reward one over the other. It holds each moment with the same quiet consistency, allowing time to remain open and unpressured. Nothing advances. Nothing resolves. The school simply maintains its presence, offering a stable interior where change is unnecessary. In this state, awareness no longer searches for cues. It accepts the calm repetition as sufficient, allowing the night to continue without expectation. The building holds this hour without tension. Nothing in its structure suggests an ending or a beginning. The walls maintain their distance, neither closing in nor opening outward. The ceiling remains steady overhead, unnoticed and unchanged. The floor continues its quiet task beneath you, offering the same support without variation. In this steadiness, the sense of space becomes less defined by edges, and more by presence. The school does not ask to be navigated or understood. It allows itself to be experienced as a single interior state, calm and uninterrupted. Awareness rests easily within this state, no longer separating one detail from another, allowing the space to exist as a complete and settled whole. And the quiet deepens, not by becoming heavier, but by becoming complete. The movement continues. Not toward an ending. Not toward a conclusion. Just forward, the way it always has. The hallway remains as it is. The lights stay on. The floor holds its place beneath you. Nothing signals that this is the last time through. Nothing marks this moment as different from the one before it. The school does not prepare to release you. It continues to exist in the same quiet way it always has, holding its shape without interruption. The steady hum overhead has thinned into something constant. No longer a sound that asks to be noticed, but a presence that blends completely into the space around you. Waiting and moving no longer feel separate. Both settle into the same calm state. The idea of sequence softens until it loses meaning. There is no clear beginning to any moment, no defined ending. Each one blends into the next without resistance, held evenly by the structure of the building. The hallway opens again into a familiar stretch of light. Or perhaps it is the same one, returning without explanation. The difference no longer matters. The hallway no longer feels like a space meant to be crossed. It feels like a place that simply exists, complete without movement. The lights overhead no longer suggest distance or direction. They are present, then gone, leaving no impression behind. The floor remains unchanged beneath you, offering the same steady support without asking for awareness. In this part of the night, the building does not require observation. It allows attention to rest without focus, drifting gently without needing to settle on any single detail. Everything remains stable enough that nothing needs to be held in mind. The floor remains steady, unconcerned, reliable. It carries weight and releases it without acknowledgement. No memory is kept. No impression remains. You do not need to stay aware of where you are. The building holds that awareness for you. Lights pass overhead without leaving a trace. They appear, and then let go. The quiet remains intact. There is no need to follow the motion anymore. It continues whether attention is present or drifting. Direction dissolves. Up and down lose their meaning. Forward and backward soften until they are no longer distinct. There is only movement, slow, even, uninterrupted. The school carries this movement without effort. Nothing arrives. Nothing departs. The hallway continues in the same calm rhythm, unchanged by time or notice. The lights remain steady. The floor remains supportive, holding everything evenly. As the quiet continues, awareness becomes simpler. Thoughts arrive less often, and when they do, they pass through without forming connections. There is no need to follow them or respond. The space holds steady regardless. The school does not signal that anything is ending. It does not prepare for transition. It maintains the same calm presence, allowing attention to soften further, releasing its grip gradually. In this state, nothing needs to be remembered. Nothing needs to be anticipated. The building carries the moment forward without effort, steady and unchanged. The longer this calm remains uninterrupted, the less distinction there is between being present and letting go. Awareness no longer needs to stay engaged with the space around you. The hallway holds its shape without asking to be noticed, and the lights continue their quiet rhythm without drawing attention. The floor remains steady beneath every small shift of weight, offering the same support whether it is acknowledged or ignored. In this final stretch of the night, the building does not signal completion or change. It allows the moment to extend naturally, without pressure or expectation. Everything that remains is stable enough to fade gently into the background, leaving nothing that needs to be followed, understood, or remembered. In this state, the sense of effort dissolves almost completely. There is no need to maintain attention or guide it anywhere. The space remains consistent enough that nothing pulls focus outward. The school continues to exist in the same quiet way, holding its interior without variation. Awareness is free to rest without anchoring itself to thought or direction. Nothing asks to be completed. Nothing waits to begin. The moment remains open, calm, and steady, allowing everything to settle naturally. And slowly, without marking the moment, the need to follow it slips away. The motion holds. Quiet. Unconcerned.